Terror's new age, the threat that persists. Hence, even though by September 2001 India had already been a victim of cross border terrorism for years, 9/11 will denote a paradigmatic change in the practice of violence. History is relevant and most important when it comes to ensuring a proper understanding of threats such as terrorism, which have a long term impact. Hence, even though by September 2001 India had already been a victim of cross border terrorism for years, 9/11 did denote a paradigmatic change in the practice of violence. More to the point, India's security establishment recognized early on the attack had profound strategic implications. Attack on US Mumbai. Already by the late 1980s, the broad sweep acquired by radical Islam had begun to felt across the globe. The war against the Soviets in Afghanistan during the period gave it a new impetus. Apart from producing new patterns of terrorism derived from a mixture of religious fervor and fundamentalist aims, the Afghan jihad of the 80s attracted volunteers from across Islamic world, and among the volunteers was Osama bin Laden, for whom Afghanistan was a formative experience. It brought him into contact with Islamists from Egypt and Syria, including Yaman al-Zawahiri, the leader of Egyptian Islamic Jihad. The thought process of the new breed of terrorist was influenced by the teachings of Egyptian Said Qutb and Palestinian Abdullah Ajam, together with the practice theology of Jalaluddin Haqqani. 2 decades on, the broad shape of Islamist terrorism remains much the same, though there are many more variants today in existence. September 11, 2001 alerted security experts and agencies to new age terrorism, though it took many years for them to understand that these terrorists belonged to an altogether different genre of terrorism, differing both in structure and morphology from those of the past. The lessons had hit home. New age terrorists had, for instance, far greater transnational reach. The attack that took place in the United States had its ultimate command and control in Afghanistan, while the attackers came from several Arab states. In the case of 26/11 attacks in Mumbai, the ultimate command and control was in Pakistan. The controllers relied heavily on technology to manage every phase of the operation. The terrorists were trained by official agencies in Pakistan, and an American national was used to carry out reconnaissance of targets to be attacked. From India's viewpoint, employing violence indiscriminately, as well as the concept of external sponsorship and support to non-state actors, revealed a new cognitive map of terrorism. While September 11, 2001 helped to focus global attention on the reach and expanse of global jihad, November 26, 2008 was a direct wake-up call for India's security agencies. Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden emerged as the symbols of the new genus of terrorism following September 11, 2001. But when India realized with November 26, 2008 was that Pakistan had thrown down the gauntlet and would stop to nothing to achieve its end, it had to hence gear up its efforts further to protect the Indian mainland. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda continued to wax and wane, but of special interest to Indian security establishment was of Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent. Of even greater interest to India's security planners was the impetus to all this gave to Al-Qaeda acolytes such as the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, both of which operated from Pakistan and had been responsible for several large terror attacks in India. Continuing ISI threats. Following the elimination of Osama bin Laden in 2011 and the Al-Qaeda core weakened, the world and India confronted a new threat, ISIS. The theology of the new organization was not very different from that of Al-Qaeda, but it leaned more towards nihilism of Said Qutb. It also offered a vision of new and exclusive brand of puritanical Islam. The ISIS idea of a new caliphate also ignited the imagination of Muslim youth across the globe, and it proved to be a powerful magnet to attract volunteers to the cause. The ability to proselyte over the internet became a key propaganda weapon in the armory of the ISIS, with the several thousands of being recruited in this manner. Although India remained in the crosshairs of ISIS at various times, ISIS claimed that parts of India were incorporated within the Islamic State of Khorasan. The activities of ISIS in India remained rather limited. It would not, however, be wise to underestimate the influence of the Islamic State of the region as a whole. Clear evidence of this was seen in Easter Sunday bombing in Sri Lanka in 2015, for which the Islamic State had claimed responsibility even it was facing setbacks in Syria and Iraq. Notwithstanding the above, both Al Qaeda and Islamic State, as well as terror outfits such as Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, continue to be active even though the numbers of violent incidents have come down as compared to the past. Afghanistan has been the main area of operation for the Islamic State following the setback in Syria and Iraq. The emergence of the Taliban as the de facto rulers of Afghanistan may see attempts on their part to check the activities of the ISIS, but to what extent is too early to surmise. 26/11 one of a kind. The 26/11 attack was one of a kind, and while prior to this, Pakistan had been carrying out a series of terror strikes, some by Laxar, some by Jaish, and some by other terror groups, almost all of which were sponsored by Pakistan. The magnitude of the Mumbai terror attack shook the security establishment. The 26/11 provided direct evidence of the involvement of the Pakistani state in terror activities. The choice of targets in Mumbai had been made after careful reconnaissance carried out under the aegis of the ISI and implemented by a group of 10 handpicked elite terrorists who had been trained for several weeks in Lahore and Karachi. The entire operation was masterminded by the ISI and the Pakistani establishment, with even telecommunications being controlled by an official of the establishment. Details of the plan formulated by the Pakistani deep state, which emerged from computer of Jarar Shah, indicated that the elite terrorists were to proceed by a mothership from Karachi on the high seas, shift to smaller sailing ship and onto dinghy closer to land. After landing, the 10 terrorists were to split and proceed to their predetermined and previously reconnoitered targets. Seldom, if even if the annals of terrorism have there been instances of a government sponsoring an attack of this kind. Lessons India learned. The intelligence available was undoubtedly sketchy and proper anticipation too was missing. Both have been seen addressed to a large extent. The first responders reacted gallantly. Arrival of the elite National Security Guard was, however, delayed due to lack of transport and other administrative pitfalls. Several steps have been taken to overcome these lacunae. The Coast Guard mechanism to police India's long coastline had been strengthened and energized. Additions have been made to the number of NSG hubs. Better transport facilities for the NSG have been introduced. Intelligence coordination between the states and the central agencies has been strengthened. While the good news is that there has not been an attack of anywhere on the scale of 9/11 in the US or 26/11 in India, the grim reality is that the ideology and the concept of nihilist violence has not been eradicated. Confirmed figures about the number of Salah jihadist fighters worldwide and in our region are not available, but they run into several thousands, including in our immediate neighborhood. The Islamic State remains a potential threat. All this indicates that even though the terrorist threat may ebb and flow at times, terrorism remains an ever-present reality. An uncertain coalition. However, tempting it might be to think that the global war on terror and the international response to Islamist terrorism greatly helped shape India's strategic relationship around the world. This is hardly the case. India often plays a lone hand in making the world understand the seriousness of the terrorist threat and has even less success in having individual terrorists like Hafiz Saeed designated as terrorists of international concern. While many of the current Taliban leaders, including the acting Prime Minister Mullah Mohammad Hassan Akhund and some Minister Sirajuddin Haqqani, have been included in the United Nations Security Council terrorism list, India had a wage to lone an uphill battle to include other names on the same terror list, despite providing enough evidence of their perfidy, and terror links. The India US nuclear deal of 2008, in fact, did far more to shape and strengthen India's new strategic relationship with the US. The deteriorating relations between the US and China and India and China have further contributed to the strengthening of India's US strategic relations. What lies ahead? The return of the Taliban in Afghanistan and the generally unsettled conditions in that country are matters of deep concern to India for a variety of reasons. Important among them is that the current Taliban interim government includes quite a few internationally listed terrorists. This could possibly make it easier for forces inimical to India, such as Pakistan, to use Afghanistan as a base to wage major terrorist operations directed at key targets in India. One obvious target is Kashmir, which has been in the crosshairs of Pakistani terror groups for over 3 decades. It is now possible to envisage Pakistan as exploiting the opportunity to enlarge its area of operation and the ambit of its target well beyond Kashmir. Given its relationship with the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, India Terror Watch will as a result need to be greatly enhanced. The prognosis about a reduction in terrorism in the near future is distinctly unfavorable. The United Nations has a poor record in dealing with terrorism in any form and are likely to make little difference, and despite the Prime Minister seeking a universal definition of terrorism, it would appear that the fight against terrorism will largely continue to be fought by individual countries who are victims of such attacks. India must not lower its guard under any circumstances. Thank you.